A few days ago, several bus lines in Baoding City, Hebei Province, ceased operations. The capacity of the remaining operational buses is less than a quarter of what it was during peak times in the past, making travel extraordinarily difficult for the nearly 10 million residents. The incident became a hot topic on Weibo, topping the trending charts. A while ago, a user on People's Daily Leaders message board queried about the suspension of bus services in Baoding, whether there's any chance of reinstating the halted routes, and if so, what the time frame might be and when new buses will be acquired. This user, a resident of Han Street, highlighted that the only bus service, Route 18, had been discontinued, leaving them without any public transportation. They have been ardently hoping for the normal resumption of the bus service. Nevertheless, the response from the bus company indicated they are currently incapable to reinstate the service. According to a report by China National Radio on July 12th, the reporters visited Baoding and found that not only were some bus lines suspended, but residents also had to travel farther to find operational lines. The frequency of operating buses was significantly reduced, leading to longer wait times. An employee of the Baoding bus company told the reporter, "We now have far fewer buses. The number has been reduced from over 1,300 to just 333, and indeed the batteries of more than 800 buses are in poor condition. It's been like this for a year and a half." Zhang Zhuo, a driver who has worked at the Baoding bus company for over 10 years, said, "Fewer buses mean longer waiting times. Waiting 30, 40, or even 50 minutes is quite normal." According to the official website of Baoding City, it is known as the South Gate of the capital Beijing, with a resident population of 11.4 million. This means that the burden of transportation for tens of millions of people falls on just 333 buses, highlighting the severity of the situation. As reported by Chinese media, the paper in November of the previous year, the Baoding bus company issued a notice stating that due to the continuous impact of the pandemic, the company's operations were in an extremely difficult situation. To alleviate the operational pressure, the company temporarily suspended 8 lines starting from November 15th. On June 27th of this year, Hebei Baoding Transportation Co. Limited responded to a netizen inquiry. Since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in early 2020, the volume of bus passengers has plummeted, with bus operation revenues being less than 30% of normal operations. The company's operational funds are extremely tight. At the same time, the power batteries of the first batch of pure electric buses have exceeded their warranty period and poses a safety risk. They are no longer in a safe condition for operation and were forced to completely withdraw from service, severely impacting the arrangement of bus services. Records show that the Baoding City Public Transportation Corporation was established in 1963. As a state-owned enterprise, it is responsible for public transportation and urban parking management in Baoding. An employee of the city told a reporter from China National Radio during an interview that the bus company is not a profit-making entity and relies on financial support from the city. However, the subsidy has not yet been provided, and the company is doing its best to report the situation to higher authorities, hoping that the suspended lines can be resumed as soon as possible. The suspension incident has sparked heated discussions among the public. First, regarding the issue of poor batteries on the electric buses, a man whom the netizens have dubbed Talent and Interview Brother humorously revealed the truth behind electric vehicles through a self-interview, that is, a video in which he simulated a conversation with another person. When discussing the safety of electric vehicles, Interview Brother's self-interview was quite surreal. Initially, when asked about the safety of electric vehicles, he confidently stated in his self-simulated role that they were very safe, even safer than diesel vehicles. However, when asked why pure electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles can no longer be ferried, the simulated character first asked who owned the ferry. Upon hearing that it was a ferry under their direct jurisdiction, the simulated character stated that the vehicle could not be ferried due to safety concerns, as any incident could cause a stir on social media. Interview brother then asked, quite puzzled, so are they safe or not? The response was even stranger. They're safe to drive yourself. If a problem rises and you see smoke, just run fast. There's no risk, just don't involve others. Finally, the simulated character advised that we should have confidence in electric vehicles. If we feel that they're not good enough, we should strive to build better ones rather than criticizing them. In the end, interview brother said, it is really different from normal people. Regarding the issue of the bus company ceasing operations due to a lack of funds, some have questioned. In fact, it doesn't seem like Baoding is short of money. In the government work report published in February, they explicitly stated that they plan to implement 676 key projects at the provincial and city level this year, with a total investment of 665.8 billion yuan. I estimate that resolving the transportation needs of 9 million people would only require a few billion yuan, which is a mere drop in the bucket compared to 665.8 billion yuan. So why are some people reluctant to address this issue? Another person analyzed, according to the 2022 National Economic and Social Statistics Bulletin of Baoding City, the city's total GDP last year was 388 billion yuan. A 3.8% increase from the previous year, with the city's per capita GDP at 42,317 yuan, a 4.4% increase from the previous year. Under normal circumstances, Baoding has the capability to support public transportation. Public transportation serves the public interest and provides public services and products, and it should not be disrupted, as that could adversely affect the public's interest. Someone else expressed confusion, saying, it's quite surprising. Is Baoding really that poor? Another person questioned, is this a strategy by the bus company? The parking spaces along the streets of Baoding belong to them, so the annual parking fees they collect should be substantial, right? Netizens with foresight expressed their worries. This might just be the beginning. When the government runs out of money, the first thing to be affected is the public transportation system, followed possibly by the education and healthcare systems. Furthermore, Baoding ranks 4th out of 11 prefecture-level cities in Hebei Province in terms of fiscal revenue. If it's already struggling, the situation may be even more pessimistic for cities with worse fiscal incomes. Another netizen lamented, many bus routes in Baoding have stopped running. This is just the beginning. More and more city bus services will stop running. More and more city streetlights will not turn on. There's no money. Domestic bus services have stopped. Civil servant salaries are in arrears, yet foreign students in China are still receiving hefty subsidies. The government is truly irresponsible. Experts have also pointed out that urban public transportation relies on fiscal subsidies. If local subsidies are not in place, it's hard for bus companies to fill the funding gap. They can't pay salaries, social security, and vehicle insurance. Choosing to cease operation is a move of desperation. In Hebei Province, Baoding City relies heavily on land finance. The continuous shrinking of the real estate market in recent years has caused a decline in land sale revenue, which has hit the local government's available financial resources. This predicament in Baoding City is not an isolated case. In 2022, all 31 provinces and cities in China had fiscal deficits. Even the wealthy Shanghai municipal government ran into a deficit. Local governments are facing a sharp contraction in income. The cause, according to senior China fellow Craig Singleton from the think tank Foundation of Defense of Democracies, is the high cost of maintaining a COVID-0 policy, which has wreaked havoc on China's economy, throwing its public finance into chaos. In 2023, China's economy is even more distressed, with lost foreign trade orders, sluggish consumption, factory closures, and job losses. The government's tax revenues were greatly affected, and the real estate market is getting worse, which is a blow to local governments that heavily rely on land transfer fees. In addition, officials at all levels of Chinese government have borrowed money to increase GDP, earning their bonuses, getting promoted, and leaving. But what's left is a huge debt hole. The government announced in January this year that China's explicit debt has reached about 38 trillion yuan, while the IMF said in February that local governments' hidden debt had jumped from last year's 57 trillion to a record 66 trillion. According to Bloomberg, local governments in China will face a peak of debt maturing in the next 5 years, with nearly 15 trillion yuan in bonds due, accounting for 40% of their bond balance. With money hard to come by and debt exceeding the ability to repay, this is the current situation facing the Chinese government. Therefore, regarding local debt, the authorities have repeatedly stated that the central finance will not bail out local areas. In January this year, Finance Minister Liu Kun stated, "Next, we will further break the expectation of government backing." A public letter issued by the Ministry of Finance also stressed, in terms of local debt, adhere to the central does not rescue principle. Whoever's child it is, they carry it. As such, the conflict between the central and local governments is becoming increasingly acute. The central government is forcing local governments to solve their own financial problems, but local governments are also forcing the central government vice versa. If I don't have money, I would just lay flat. If pushed too hard, many expenses will not be carried out, such as the ongoing issue of public buses in Baoding, as well as instances of teacher salaries not being issued, civil servants' wage reductions, and police unable to maintain stability due to unpaid wages. These are either happening now or are on the verge of happening. The suspension of public transportation in Baoding is not an isolated incident. Similar events has occurred sporadically all over the country. In July of last year, 6 bus routes in Boluo, Guangdong were suspended. In August of the same year, 8 bus companies in Leiyang City in Hunan jointly announced that they were unable to pay drivers' wages due to financial difficulties and plan to stop operating Leiyang buses on August 25th. In mid-August, public buses in Danchen, Henan almost ceased operations because they could not pay drivers' wages. At the end of last year, the public transportation company in Taihu County and Hebei Province also stopped operating for several days and posted overdue electricity bills. Some bus routes in Jiangchang County, Liaoning Province were suspended since December of last year and only resumed in mid-February. On February 10th this year, on the Puchen government's website in Shanxi, citizens reported that the county buses had stopped running, making it inconvenient to travel. There is no bus from Puchen East Railway Station to the county. All are taxis. We used to cost 2 yuan, now cost 10 yuan, a 5-fold increase. Puchen Transportation Bureau responded by saying that due to the impact of the epidemic, the bus company has been operating at a loss in recent years, leading to a temporary suspension of county buses. On February 12th, Mohe Bus Company in Heilongjiang also issued a notice stating that they decided to suspend operations on February 15. We can't repay our car loans now, we can't pay our staff salaries, we can't pay for charging station electricity and employee pension insurance. Our company is no longer able to bear the public welfare and livelihood issues related to the people's travel. Faced with operational difficulties, some places have chosen to cut their losses by suspending some routes. Since the beginning of this year, some bus routes have been suspended in many places such as Fuyang in Anhui and Panyu in Guangdong. Although some public transport has resumed partial operation under government pressure, there is public concern that these bus companies are only reluctantly operating under government pressure and may stop running again in the near future.